In 1665, a microscopic bacterium wiped out 100,000 people in London. That was nearly a quarter of the entire city's population erased in a matter of months. But while society was collapsing under the weight of death, an unemployed college student sitting in an empty garden was about to rewrite the laws of the universe. How did the Great Plague of London create the greatest scientific genius the world has ever known? The Great Plague of London wasn't just a disease, it was a death sentence. To survive, you had to run. The prestigious University of Cambridge, a fortress of human knowledge, panicked and bolted its doors shut. For young Isaac Newton, this meant forced exile. He was sent back to his childhood farm, completely cut off from his professors, his peers, and the vast academic libraries. No mentors, no laboratories, just terrifying isolation, with the threat of an agonizing death looming just miles away. By all conventional logic, his intellectual career should have died in that countryside quarantine. But isolation does strange things to the human mind. When you strip away the noise, the lectures, and the distractions of the world, what remains is pure, unfiltered obsession. Newton didn't just survive the lockdown, he weaponized it. In a brief, intense window of just 18 months, a period historians now whisper about as his Annus Mirabilis, or Year of Wonders, he didn't just study science, he broke reality down to its core and rebuilt it from scratch.
There was a hidden alchemy in this dark isolation, a secret system born from silence. Let's uncover exactly what happened inside the mind of a quarantined young man and why humanity actually needed the plague to discover gravity. To understand what happened in 1666, you have to understand 17th century boredom. There were no smartphones, no internet, no friends to visit. Newton was trapped in Woolsthorpe Manor with nothing but a notebook, an inkwell, and his own thoughts. But this wasn't a prison, it was an incubator. At Cambridge, Newton was forced to study what his professors dictated, ancient, outdated Aristotelian philosophy. Here, in the quiet isolation of the countryside, he was the master of his own curriculum. Without the rigid structure of the university, his mind was finally free to wander into dangerous, uncharted territories. Let's talk about how far he was willing to go, how truly obsessed he became. Back then, the world's smartest minds thought color was just a mixture of light and darkness. Newton wanted the truth. Since he didn't have a laboratory, he used his own body. He literally took a blunt needle and slid it between his eyeball and the bone of his eye socket. He pressed it against the back of his own retina just to see how the physical pressure would change his perception of color. He wasn't just a student anymore, he was a mad scientist. He blacked out his entire bedroom, poked a tiny hole in the wooden shutters, and used a glass prism to intercept a single beam of sunlight. In doing so, he proved that white light wasn't pure, it was a combination of every color in the rainbow. He revolutionized the science of optics entirely from a dark, dusty bedroom.
But light wasn't enough to satisfy him. Newton looked at the sky and saw planets orbiting. He watched objects accelerating toward the ground. He hit a massive roadblock. The mathematics of the 1600s was static. It was great for measuring a still triangle, but completely useless for measuring a planet curving through space or the accelerating speed of a falling rock. So what do you do when the tools of humanity aren't good enough? You invent new ones. In the span of a few months, sitting by candlelight, Newton invented an entirely new branch of mathematics to explain a universe in motion. He called it the method of fluxions. Today, you know it as calculus. every rocket launched into space, every modern skyscraper, every smartphone in your pocket relies on the math a 23-year-old kid invented because he was bored during a pandemic. And then there's the apple. We all know the legend. An apple falls, bonks him on the head, he yells "aha" and discovers gravity. Forget the cartoon version. The reality is far terrifying and profound. Newton was looking out his window, watching an apple fall. But he didn't just see the fruit. He looked past the tree, up at the moon floating in the daytime sky, and a terrifying, beautiful question struck him. If the apple is pulled down to the dirt, why doesn't the moon fall? The breakthrough wasn't discovering that gravity existed. Everyone knew things fell. The breakthrough was discovering that gravity is universal. The exact same invisible force pulling that apple into the dirt was reaching hundreds of thousands of miles into the cold vacuum of space, grabbing the moon and holding it in place by an invisible cosmic tether. With a single thought, an isolated college student united the earth and the heavens. Eventually, the Great Plague burned itself out. The death toll was staggering, but the quarantine was finally lifted. In 1667, Isaac Newton packed up his ink-stained notebooks and returned to Cambridge. But he didn't return as a student. He returned as a force of nature. He brought with him the secrets of light, the language of motion, and the invisible laws of gravity. He would later compile these revelations into the Principia Mathematica, arguably the most important scientific book ever written. But here is the chilling truth. None of this modern world we live in today would exist if he hadn't been forced into that terrifying, lonely quarantine. It's the ultimate historical paradox. The darkest, most apocalyptic year in London's history produced the brightest spark of human genius. The plague took 100,000 lives, but in a strange, twisted way, it gave humanity the universe. So, the next time you feel stuck, isolated, or crushingly bored, remember a 23-year-old Isaac Newton sitting in a quiet apple orchard. Distraction is the enemy of greatness. Sometimes you have to completely shut out the noise of the world just to hear the universe speaking to you. If you enjoyed this journey into the mind of history's greatest isolated genius, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our reality. And I want to ask you, what would you create with 18 months of total isolation? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.